Hey yo, LAZ, aka Liggy Smalls, you heard Brownsville, Brooklyn, Dykeman, 200 block, New York City, we in the building. You feel me? Gen Pop Gang is in the building, Slim Blunt Gang is in the building. You feel me? Comment Gang, I need y'all to go crazy. You heard? I need about 57 comments on this in the first 10 minutes. You heard? Shout out to bro Puerto Rican Mikey, the bro Fruquan. Now I mean we putting that LG2 in effect, man. You heard another episode of that dropping this week. Make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you catch up on all the episodes. Yersk Z Boy. You already snowblower. If you appreciate what I'm doing on this channel, you heard, feel free to send that slash app donation. You heard? A lot of y'all dudes out there hating on my Cash App, man. Stop hating, man. What you need to do is pass my Cash App off to your broad. You heard? Give my Cash App to your broad if you a hater. And watch he be sending me that Gwizzop on a Lizzo.
Yeah, I told lads I want to do this shit one time. I always wanted to do it. I'm going to do it. Z-Man, Suicide Polo with the Ski Man.
Yeah, bro. Running around the hood like He-Man. Like, yeah, bro.
I love that.
You said your pops was in the Chaplains?
Well, my pops grew up in Marcy. My pops grew up in 462 Marcy Avenue, right? My pops, anybody down there, anybody that grew up there at that time, you were considered a chaplain. Even if you weren't active, you couldn't go in other neighborhoods because they were, there were borders. For instance, Tompkins Avenue was the border for chaplains. There were chaplain groups. The Fort Greene chaplains, you had the Marcy chaplains, you had other groups of chaplains. Chaplains were like running Bedstuy at that time. Well, one side of it, anyway, in downtown, what we call the Head of Medina, the chaplains ran, right? So my father told me this story, and what I'm telling you this to get to something else. So I'm gonna give you a brief history on gang culture in Brooklyn from my perspective, right? My father told me, and my mom told me a story how my mother had a 16th birthday party, right? My mother grew up on Vernon Avenue. I'm talking the late 50s, early 60s. My mother grew up on Vernon Avenue, and my mother's cousin was a chaplain, right? So my mother's cousin introduced my father to my mother. Anyway, they had a birthday party, but my mother is in Imperial Lloyd's territory because they're past Tompkins Avenue. My mother's, the house that I grew up in would have landed in Imperial Lloyd's, Jolly Stompers, and Buccaneer territory. You understand? So my mother had a birthday party, but my father's group came up past Tompkins Avenue to come to the birthday party. And the Imperial Lords, my mother's friends from the neighborhood, were also in the party. Imperial Lords, Jolly Stompers. At that time, the Buccaneers and the Imperial Lords ran Sumner, right? 59, the school 59 in that park and that rec center and everything up there was all Imperial Lord Buccaneers territory, right? So in the party, there were both groups there, right? Unbeknownst to my grandmother and my grandfather, and my mother wasn't gang savvy either. So there were both groups there, and one of the Imperial Lords pulled their switchblade and cut my mother's cape, right? And they had a big brawl in my mother's basement. They broke out all the windows, tore pipes out of the ceiling, and my grandfather locked them down there, and they had to break out the windows and stuff to get out. There was also a precinct on my block, on Vernon and Tompkins, but it was a annex of the 79th precinct. They used to have little traffic precincts back then. I asked a whole bunch of questions. That's why I know this stuff. So, anyway, that was a big fight, and it introduced me into gang culture, and that gangs existed back then and how they progressed. Those guys, the Buccaneers, Imperial Lords, the Jolly Stompers, the Chaplains, converted and turned to tomahawks, right? At the time, a lot of them turned into tomahawks, and my neighborhood turned from tomahawks and Jolly Stompers to Spanish gangs, the Dirty Ones, the Stocking Brothers, the Assassinators, the Chingalings. Also, over in Brownsville, they had a gang called the Socialist Gents, right? Where they were political yet considered a gang also, right? My great grandmother had a house on Bergen between Hopkins and Saratoga. I think they changed Hopkins now. I'm not in New York, but I think they changed that name, Hopkins. My cousin just sold that house. But anyway, that neighborhood was Jolly Stompers also down there, and socialist gents. Anyway, going into that gang culture in the 80s, you had a bunch of Spanish gangs. You had the 31 Stocking Brothers, Assassinators. You had in the Bronx, you had black gangs. You had the Black Spades. You had a lot of Spanish gangs, the Savage Skulls. Then coming into the 80s, they created the Zulu Nation over in the Bronx. In Queens, they had the Seven Crowns, right? All of these gangs, right, were taught and brought out of gang culture by the Nation of Gods and Earths, the 5%ers. You understand? So I'm telling you this to say that we are not a gang. And I got a lot of flack from the Powerful, the Great story, right? Where people were saying that I was depicting him as a gangster and as a violent guy. I knew Powerful. I got sanctioned, and I got the blessing of CLR and Lord Graceful and Shabazz. Shabazz was Powerful's right-hand man. I know I was there. I was with them, and they taught me, and we went up against drug dealers. That's what we did. You understand? And we would have been considered a special risk group or SRG because we went up against drug dealers, and we didn't let the system and the police force do their dirty work, so to speak. Anyway, the guards taught these guys. In fact, there was a jam in 23 Park when I was very young, where the Dirty Ones and the Stockton Brothers came into the jam. and the guards came into the jam, and I watched the guards run those guys out of our park and essentially run those gangs out of our neighborhood. You understand? So the guards were solutionaries. In a time of revolutionaryism, the guards were solutionaries. Our duty as civilized people is to teach the uncivilized. That's the order of the day. You understand? That's the 18th degree and the 1 to 40. That's the knowledge build degree and the 1 to 40. What is the duty of civilized men? Anyway, the guards bringing gangsters into the nation, trying to clean them up. The father of our nation was in close ties with Mayor Lindsay, and he had political backing and political gain for our nation. You understand? Because you have to go through politics in order to change policy right now. Anyway, so we weren't revolutionaries, we were solutionaries. You understand? Although we did have those gang characteristics, the elders, you know, implored us to take our do-rags off and stop carrying ourselves like gangsters. You understand? So now we had things like, as a youth, we did have some gangish gangster ways, right, about us that we're trying to clean up and get rid of even still today. So for instance, like me and my brothers, right, we would go to other neighborhoods, right, and like to see girls or to you know, to hang out with brothers that we knew. And if we went into a neighborhood and guys were unwelcoming to us or gave us stares, we would say, you know, Allah is the God, right? We would wait for response, right? And if we didn't get the correct response, we came back through there and lit that shit up. You understand? So we're trying to get away from, we have gotten away from that because we are an older nation. Now, we fast forward to the first time I went to the first time I got locked up, and the first time I was on Rikers Island. I did not, it was a culture shock because Latin brothers were woven into our community. So when I got on Rikers Island and seen the racism and the separation between Spanish and black, it was like shocking to me because I grew up right there in that area. The border, we're on the borderline of Williamsburg. So it was, we went to school with Puerto Ricans. We grew up with Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and all of those Latino groups. So it was like shocking to me to see that. I also noticed, like for instance, in New Jack Dome, there was a officer, Miss Cologne, right? And Miss Cologne, I would ask guys, how long have you been here? You're in New Jack Dome 8 and 9 months and 10 months. And I wondered why were those Spanish brothers being kept down there? Miss Cologne was protecting the Spanish brothers because from my perspective, we were doing them dirty. I mean, African Americans and even brothers from the God Nation were putting pressure on, you know, the Latino community in some sense. You understand? So when I got moved out of New Jack Dome, Mars 6, and I went into population, I watched them. She sent one Spanish guy with us. I think he might have been hanging around us too much, or he was a little bit too black for her liking. So I watched him get beat. I watched them prey on him because for no other reason. He was Spanish. So when the Latin Kings unified, I understood. I seen what was going on, and a lot of that oppression that they speak about was happening. We had a name we would call, Spanish people Germans, right? And when Spanish people were having a problem, they would scream like Boricua, or they were talking Spanish, and they would gather up to fight against us, right? But at that time, there was a lot of preying on Spanish people, and the system has made a separation. We didn't do it; they did it. You understand? That was set up that way. That was socially designed that way. That we would fight and kill one another while they imprisoned us and locked us up and kept us incarcerated and kept the focus off of what really was going on. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, I watched that go on, and when I came back to Rikers Island in '94 as an adult, I seen the change. The Latin Kings had took over Rikers Island. That was the time where the Latin Kings could wear beads. Latin Kings and Nietas had beads on, and they were unified. And in the building I was in, I had a year in the 6th building. They had practically took over the whole building. You understand? I told the story on how they was attacking the guards, the Spanish guards and all that earlier. Anyway, they took over the building, and they was using that same oppression on us. Now in 90, 92, 93, 94, the Bloods was established on Rikers Island. I remember I was in one building, and they were saying that a CO got his head bust open in one of the yards in North Facility, or one of those buildings where the Bloods and the Latin Kings were going to war. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm back later as I'm older in my adulthood, where the Bloods were strong in '96. In the Latin Kings are trying to make truce and make peace with other groups. So they had there was a Latin King house where they didn't let Bloods in. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
I met a guard named Universal that made he made a place, a sanctuary for guards in the buildings, but we had to share that house with Latin Kings. Now the guard was on the gate when we walked up. The guard Universal. He's from Pelon. He's from the Bronx. This guard showed me how to structure. He showed me a lot. He had a lot of wisdom. He showed me how to structure and make set up a place for guards where we wasn't getting attacked. You understand? So the guard was on the gate, and when I came up on the gate, he wasn't letting nobody in the house. The Latin King brother, one of the crowns, was on the gate with him, and they had a truce together, and they were only letting Latin Kings and guards. They didn't want any Bloods in the house. Anyway, the guard. This was after we went to war in the cell house. I went to war with the Bloods against the Latin Kings when the COs was handing them weapons and so forth. Anyway, the guard Universal was questioning people as they came to the gate. He was standing there with the police. So the guard Universal asked me, who did I know? Who was my enlightener? And so forth and so on. I told him that I'm from Tompkins. I'm from the Tompkins Avenue area, and that Powerful the Great was my enlightener. He didn't know Powerful. You know, he asked me a few more questions. Then he asked me who taught Powerful, right? And I told him Lord Graceful taught Powerful. He told the police, crack that motherfucking gate and let my brother in, because Lord Graceful had taught all over the city. You understand? So we are not a gang. We are anti-gang, right? We don't have OGs, all right? We have enlightenments, okay? We don't recruit. We teach. We educate. You understand? So this is what I was trying to convey. Another thing is a lot of brothers are reluctant now to display their ID to police, and it's for this reason. It's because the NYPD has a gang database, okay? And the Department of Corrections have a gang database, okay? So they are recording our risk. It's a risk assessment, right? So those databases are all connected. The NYPD has access to the Department of Corrections database, and so does the FBI. So when you're out in the street and police ID you, this is why people are reluctant. Some people have knowledge of this database, and when they put your name into this gang database, you are now considered an SRG, a part of an SRG group, a security risk group. You understand? So this is why we have to keep ourselves out of, especially at this time right now. They are doing mass indictments. They are using RICO on us, and it's all started and based from those databases. You understand? So we have to be knowledgeable of those things. Also, the guards have influenced the hip-hop culture. The guards have influenced this nation as a whole in a positive way. You see on BET we have the cipher. That's from our nation. The cipher is in our lessons. You understand? Jay-Z is the first billionaire hip-hop artist. Jay-Z is from our nation. People ask the question, is Jay-Z in our nation? He's from Marcy. You understand? We've been teaching in Marcy. We had a stronghold on that area, Marcy and Fort Greene, since the 60s. So is he a part of our nation? Emphatically, yes. He's a part of our nation. He's doing things on his own terms, though. You understand? So with that, I say, you know, we have to be mindful and unify all of these street tribes and organizations and associations have to be mindful and unify. The Latin Kings, the Nietas, and in fact, when I came through, the Nietas would feed me. You understand? When I came through, before I went to the store, the Nietas that knew me and knew about my history and my diplomacy, they would feed me before some of my brothers did. You understand? So we have to be diplomatic and mindful of what's going on. You understand? As far as this gang culture and stuff. And also, you know, the Blood Nation was made from the oppression that was done to us by Spanish gangs. Yes, they were on our necks in 94, in 95. I was there, I seen it, I've been a part of it. And OG Tank also said that OG Tank said in his video that the first 5 OGs of the nation of the UBN was all from the 5% nation. So we've influenced the world, and we have to do it keep doing it in a more positive and vigorous way. You understand? So that's what I wanted to convey to you, and I wanted to say I'm glad the brother Saquon is free now, right? And I love what you're doing, Laz, with the page. I love everything that's going on, and in the near future, we're going to do bigger and greater things. We're going to start doing videos, and we're going to start, even if we have to make our own movie, we're going to do it. You understand, God?
That's a fact, bro.